The wedding hall glowed like something out of a dream, soft lights spilling over white roses, crystal chandeliers trembling gently as if they were breathing. Music floated through the air, slow and hopeful. I stood just behind the tall wooden doors, my fingers curled tightly around the bouquet, my heart racing faster than the melody. "This is it," the wedding coordinator whispered with a smile. "You're about to walk into your new life." I nodded, swallowing hard. My reflection stared back at me from a mirrored pillar nearby, dressed in white, eyes shining, lips trembling with a smile I'd practiced for weeks. I should have felt complete. I should have felt safe. Somewhere deep inside, a familiar ache stirred. My mother sat in the front row. I had seen her earlier perfect posture, sharp eyes, lips pressed into a line that never quite softened. She hadn't said much when she arrived, just a quick glance at my dress and a quiet, "You chose this style." That was it. No hug, no tears, no "you look beautiful." I told myself not to read into it. Today wasn't about her. Today was about love. The doors opened, everyone stood. As I stepped forward, the world narrowed to the aisle beneath my feet and the person waiting at the end of it. My partner, eyes bright, hands clasped, smiling like I was the best thing that had ever happened to them. That smile grounded me. Each step felt lighter. I almost forgot everything else. The vows began. Words about commitment, patience, forever. My chest swelled with emotion. I felt like I was finally standing in a place I had earned. After years of doubting myself, after learning to love without permission. Then a chair scraped loudly against the floor. I flinched. My mother stood. "I need to say something," she announced, her voice slicing clean through the ceremony. The officiant froze. Guests exchanged confused glances. My heart dropped so suddenly, it felt like the ground vanished beneath me. "Mom," I whispered, barely audible. She didn't look at me. "I won't support this marriage," she continued, her tone calm, almost bored. "And I won't support you anymore. I think everyone deserves to know where I stand." The room went silent. Not a soft silence, a brutal one, the kind that presses against your ears and makes your skin burn. I felt every eye turn toward me. Pity, shock, discomfort. My partner took a step forward. "This isn't appropriate. I paid for part of this wedding." My mother snapped. I have every right to speak. My hands started shaking. The bouquet felt heavier than it should have, petals blurring as tears filled my eyes. I tried to speak, but my throat closed. She went on. "I warned you this would happen. You always make choices without thinking. Don't expect help. Don't expect support. From today on, you're on your own. On your own." Those words echoed louder than anything else. I remembered being a child, standing in my room after failing a test, hearing the same tone. "Figure it out yourself." I remembered calling her when I was scared once, years ago, and hearing her sigh before saying, "I'm busy." This wasn't new. It was just public. My face burned. I wanted the floor to open and swallow me. I wanted to disappear into the folds of my dress, into silence. The officiant cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should, no." My mother said sharply, "I've said what needed to be said." She sat down, folding her hands neatly in her lap, like she hadn't just shattered me in front of everyone I loved. The hall remained frozen. No one clapped. No one spoke. The music had stopped somewhere without me noticing. I finally looked at my partner. Their eyes were full not of doubt, but rage and concern. They reached for my hand. "Say the word." They whispered, "We can walk away." I inhaled deeply. My chest hurt, but beneath the pain, something strange was happening. A tight knot inside me, one that had existed my whole life, was loosening. I realized something then. If my mother could abandon me at my happiest moment, she had never truly been standing beside me at all. I lifted my head, and for the first time I didn't feel small. I felt awake. The silence after my mother's words felt endless, like the world was holding its breath to see whether I would collapse. I stood there in the middle of the aisle, dress glowing under the lights, heart pounding so loudly I was sure everyone could hear it. My hands trembled, not from fear alone, but from years of swallowed pain rising all at once. As people avoided my eyes, memories pushed forward uninvited. I was 8 years old again, standing in the kitchen with a report card clutched in my hands. I had tried so hard that year. My grades weren't perfect, but they were mine. I remember sliding the paper toward my mother, my heart racing with hope. She barely glanced at it. "Your cousin did better," she said, already turning away. "You should aim higher. No good job." No smile, just comparison. I learned early that love in our house wasn't freely given, it was measured. Earned, temporary, the memory shifted. I was 16, sitting alone in the school auditorium after a play I had rehearsed for months. Other parents brought flowers, took photos, my phone stayed dark. Later that night, when I asked her why she hadn't come, she shrugged. "You didn't remind me," she said, "and it wasn't that important." I had nodded like it didn't matter. But it did. Standing at my wedding, I felt all those moments stacking on my chest, one after another. Each sigh she'd given me, each time she'd said, "You're too emotional," each time she made me feel like I was asking for too much, when all I wanted was to be seen. People often ask why we tolerate such treatment from family. They don't understand how it happens slowly. How you learn to minimize your own needs so you don't become a burden. How you convince yourself that crumbs are enough because you've never tasted a full meal. When I told her I was getting married, she didn't smile. She asked how much it would cost. "I don't want you embarrassing the family," she warned. "Keep it simple." Simple meant small, quiet, forgettable. I paid for most of the wedding myself, even when it meant skipping things I wanted. Still, she reminded me constantly of the portion she contributed, as if love were an invoice. Now, in front of everyone, she had cashed in her final threat. "You're on your own." I felt my partner's hand squeeze mine. They whispered my name, grounding me in the present. I blinked back tears and forced myself to breathe. The hall was still. Guests watched with expressions that ranged from sympathy to discomfort. Some looked angry on my behalf, and suddenly something shifted. For the first time, I stopped asking myself, what did I do wrong? Instead, I asked, why did I keep hoping she would change? The answer hurt, but it was honest. Because part of me was still that child in the kitchen, holding out proof of effort, waiting for approval. I looked at my mother. She sat stiffly, chin lifted, already distant. There was no regret in her eyes. No fear of losing me, and that's when I understood. She believed I would always come back, always apologize, always shrink to fit the space she allowed. She thought love would keep me obedient, but love, real love, was standing beside me now. My partner didn't ask me to stay quiet. They didn't ask me to endure. Their presence said, "You deserve better," without a single word. I straightened my spine. The humiliation was still there, but it no longer owned me. The pain didn't vanish, but it sharpened into something useful. Resolve. I realized this moment wasn't the end of my happiness. It was the end of my permission, seeking. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg her to take back her words. The power I had been chasing all my life wasn't something she could give or take. It had been mine all along. The room waited, and I finally knew what I was going to do next. The officiant shifted nervously, unsure whether to continue or step aside. The musicians hovered, hands frozen over their instruments. Time seemed to stretch, thick and heavy, as every person in the room waited to see whether I would break or beg. I did neither. I took a slow breath and stepped forward, releasing my partner's hand just long enough to reach the microphone. The metal felt cool against my fingers, grounding me. My heart was still pounding, but my voice, when it came, surprised even me. "Thank you for waiting," I said softly. A few people nodded, others leaned in. I turned first to my partner, searching their face for doubt. I found none, only trust. That trust steadied me more than anything else could have. Then I faced the guests. I didn't plan to speak right now. I continued, but life doesn't always wait for perfect timing. A gentle ripple of understanding moved through the room. "I want to be clear," I said. "What just happened hurts, deeply, but it didn't come from nowhere." My mother shifted in her seat. Her jaw tightened. "I've spent most of my life believing that if I worked harder, stayed quieter, or made myself smaller, I could earn approval." I said, Today, I finally understand that some people withhold love not because you fail them, but because control matters more to them than connection. A murmur rose. My mother scoffed. This is inappropriate, she snapped. You're turning this into a spectacle. I looked directly at her for the first time since she'd spoken. No, I replied calmly, I'm ending one. The words landed harder than a shout ever could. I turned back to the officiant. Please pause the ceremony. Gasps echoed. My partner reached for my hand again, squeezing gently. I need to make a choice, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Not in anger, but in honesty, I walked a few steps down the aisle until I stood closer to the front row. My mother stared up at me, disbelief flickering across her face. All my life, I said, you taught me independence by refusing support when I needed it most. Today, you made that lesson public. Her lips parted, ready to argue. But here's the part you didn't expect. I continued, I accept it. The room fell completely silent. I accept that you won't support me, I said evenly, and in return, I'm releasing myself from the need to chase your approval. I turned to the wedding planner standing nervously near the wall. Could you ask security to assist my mother out, please? The words were polite, firm, final. My mother shot to her feet. You wouldn't dare, after everything I've done for you. I met her gaze without flinching. Everything you've done, I said, has always come with conditions. Security approached hesitantly. Guests watched stunned. Someone in the back whispered, "Oh my God, you're humiliating me," my mother yelled. I shook my head. No, I'm setting a boundary. The phrase seemed to confuse her more than anything else. As she was escorted toward the exit, she looked around, expecting anyone. To defend her, no one did. A few people looked away. Others watched quietly. For the first time, she was alone in a room full of people. The doors closed behind her with a soft but decisive thud. I exhaled. The tension in the hall lifted like a storm cloud passing. Someone let out a shaky breath. Another person wiped their eyes. I returned to my partner's side. They searched my face, then smiled the kind of smile that says, "I see you." "I'm proud of you," they whispered. I turned back to the guests. "This wedding is still happening," I said. "But only if everyone here understands something." I paused. Love without respect isn't love, and family without kindness isn't family. Applause broke out, slow at first, then stronger. It wasn't loud or wild. It was steady, supportive, real. The officiant nodded, visibly moved. "Shall we continue?" I glanced at my partner. They nodded. "Yes," I said. "Let's continue." As the music softly returned, I realized something incredible. I wasn't shaking anymore. The choice I made didn't just shock the room, it freed me. And for the first time in my life, I felt powerful without being cruel. The music returned gently, as if it, too, was careful not to disturb the fragile peace that had settled over the room. I stood beside my partner at the altar, hands entwined, and felt something I had never felt before: lightness. Not the kind that comes from pretending everything is fine, but the kind that comes from finally telling the truth. The officiant cleared his throat, his voice softer now. "We are gathered here today to celebrate love. Love chosen freely, without fear." Those words landed deep. As vows were exchanged, I felt every sentence differently. When my partner promised to stand beside me, even when it's hard, I believed them in a way I hadn't known was possible. When it was my turn to speak, I didn't rush. "I promise," I said, voice steady, "to build a life where respect is the foundation, not a reward. I promise to protect our peace, even when that means letting go of people who don't wish us well." A few guests wiped tears from their eyes. Someone squeezed my shoulder as I passed them the ring. When the officiant finally pronounced us married, the applause was full and genuine. Not polite, not forced. It felt like a collective exhale, a room choosing love over tradition. At the reception, something unexpected happened. People came up to me one by one. An aunt I barely knew hugged me tightly and whispered, "I wish I had your courage years ago." A cousin admitted, "What you did, it changed how I see things." Even my mother's closest friend approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry." she said quietly. I didn't know. I smiled not with bitterness, but relief. It's okay. I do now. That was the revenge, not watching my mother fall apart, but watching the truth stand on its own without me defending it. Later that evening, as laughter filled the room and glasses clinked, I stepped outside for air. The night was cool, the stars sharp and clear. My partner joined me, wrapping an arm around my waist. Do you regret it? They asked gently. I thought about my mother, how she'd likely frame the story, how she'd tell people she was disrespected, how she'd wait for me to apologize. No, I said honestly, I regret waiting so long to choose myself. We didn't hear from her that night. No messages, no calls, the silence felt different now, not punishing but peaceful. Weeks later, a letter arrived. Not an apology, it was brief, careful. It said she was hurt, that she didn't recognize me anymore, that she hoped I'd come to my senses. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't respond, that was the hardest part, and the most powerful. Life moved forward, holidays came and went. Some relatives drifted away, others grew closer. I learned that distance can be a form of clarity, not loss. I built traditions of my own, quiet mornings, honest conversations, a home where love didn't require performance. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about my mother, how she complained about being cut off, how she didn't understand why people didn't side with her. But control loses its grip when it's no longer fed. The final moment of revenge came unexpectedly. Months later, at a family gathering I almost didn't attend, she approached me. Older somehow, smaller, you embarrassed me, she said softly. I looked at her, not with anger, not with longing. I didn't embarrass you, I replied. I stopped protecting you from the truth. She waited for an apology, for guilt. It didn't come. Instead, I said, I hope you find peace, but I won't shrink to make you comfortable anymore. And I walked away. No shouting, no tears, just freedom. That was the moment I understood. The sweetest revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's building a life so full, so grounded, so honest, that their absence no longer feels like punishment. And as I returned home that night, wedding ring catching the light, I knew I had won, not against her, but for myself.